to the Premier, Dom Perrottet, Paul Toole and Steph Cook. Welcome to the seat of Murray, and they're here today having a look around, seeing the flooding as it is occurring now. So please give them a warm welcome.
Thanks, Helen. Well, we're obviously here today in Moama. I want to thank Helen Dalton, a local member, for welcoming us, and obviously joined by the Deputy Premier, Paul Toole, and the Minister for Resilience and Emergency Services in Steph Cook. Well, it's a very difficult time for the community in Moama, and there are difficult times that lie ahead. I was speaking with Bianca earlier today and Ken, and seeing the challenges that are occurring with rising floodwaters still. Obviously we expected that to peak, but that's not the case. But what I do want to say is how great this community is. The stories that Ken was taking me through of his mates and local community people coming together to help every person through this difficult time, I think really sums up what is great about the Australian spirit and great about our country. There's around 200,000 sandbags that have been put together here. 200,000 sandbags didn't just happen themselves, it happened because the community and people came together to look after each other. And that makes me proud to be Australian and proud to be Premier of the state. Because everywhere we go around New South Wales, during the last 2 years, particularly the last 6 months of floods, which has been incredibly difficult, we've seen community come together. I was with Denny this morning. We're at the Operations Centre there, which I think is going incredibly well. I think we've learned from mistakes in the past, and to see federal, state and local government agencies all coming together, all working together, I believe puts us in a very strong position to deal with the challenges that are coming our way. But the stories there as well are of people, not just our great uniform, I'll come to in a minute, volunteers who are here with us today, but also non-uniform volunteers. We have school children coming and filling sandbags, members of the community all coming together to support one another. And how good is that? And despite the devastation, the difficulties that we see, what beats that? What is much stronger than that devastation has been the coming together and the spirit of service of our great people. And that spirit of service can never be broken, that spirit can never be broken. It's the great Australian way, and I'm seeing that all the way up and down New South Wales. So can I thank everybody for the work they've done. We still have 43 local government areas across the state that have been disaster declared. So obviously there are challenges in each of those communities that we have people on the ground working through this time. I want to thank our SES, our RFS. We've got fire and rescue. We have our surf lifesavers who are coming out right across our state and right across our country to come and help our people. And what a great thing that is, to have people from Hornsby, from Maroubra, from right across New South Wales coming together. And I see that in every single community across our state. And there is not enough said about it, because these are the true heroes, and it's that spirit that we need to pass on to future generations, because it's what makes our country the great place that it is. So can I thank everybody for what they've been doing during this time. In relation to support, financial support for communities, there are allowances in place to support lost income. There are relief payments in place for property damage, concessional loans available for agriculture producers, non-government organisations and the like. I'm continuing to work closely with the Prime Minister for further state and federal funding, which I expect to say something more about shortly. We've invested over $3 billion in flood relief during this period of time. They're big dollars. Behind every one of those dollars is a person who has gone through a very difficult time. And that's the role of government, that's the role of our budget, is to stand with our people during those challenges. We've done that through drought, we've done that through bushfires, we've been hit by flood after flood after flood right across our state, but our community stands tall. And if the spirit here is anything to go by, the spirit in Denny, the spirit in Moree, we're going to get through this as we always have. We'll come out stronger the other side. The government has every person's back across New South Wales, and I just want to thank everybody for the efforts they've made in the clean-up, the efforts they've made in coming out and supporting our people right across our state, and to know that if we can continue to follow the instructions of the SES, not driving through floodwaters. Even Denny today, I'm hearing stories that people continue to drive through floodwaters. If it's flooded, forget it. We say at every press conference, you're putting your life, your friends, your family's lives at risk. And as well as that, our emergency services, our volunteers who are behind us, give of themselves, put their lives on the line to support us every day. We need to follow those instructions to keep our community safe and to keep our volunteers safe. So those instructions aren't there for the sake of it. Those evacuation orders, wherever you are in New South Wales, if those evacuation orders are there, please evacuate. If those warnings are in place, please follow the instructions that have been provided by the SES. And if there are floodwaters, do not drive through them. I'm now going to pass to the Deputy Premier, Paul Toole, and then we'll take your questions.
Well, thanks, Premier, and I just want to reiterate and just say thank you to all of our emergency service personnel. We've got a number of agencies that are working alongside our councils, working alongside the ADF and many other organisations that are helping people right now. And this is about our response to the floods that we're seeing right across this state, but especially down here in the southern part of New South Wales. When you have a look at this, they are working around the clock. They are working tirelessly to ensure that the information that they are receiving is being communicated out there as quickly as possible to the community, but also ensuring that agencies are being fed with the right information to be able to respond to the needs of the local area. We're down here in Moama, and I think it just goes to show the community spirit here. Right opposite me is the caravan park that's down here, and that's a story of the resilience but also the support that is shown in the local area. To have over 250 volunteers down here on site putting sandbags together to ensure that we protect property has been an outstanding effort. And we know that we're not out of the woods yet. We know that there is more rainfall that is predicted, but we know that communities are doing everything that they can possibly to ensure that we stop those floodwaters from impacting on homes and on businesses and on property. When you have a look at the impact of these floodwaters, driving down here, you can see, even in the air, you can see that the floodwaters are widespread. But it's not only homes that have been impacted, it's also many of our farms. And when you're talking about farms, these are people's businesses. These are people's livelihoods. This is their income as well that they receive each and every year. Now, for some of our farmers, they're going to struggle to even get on the paddock this year. For some of our farmers, they've already lost their crops. Their crops are already falling over. In some cases, their crops are already starting to turn yellow because they're rotting in the ground right now. So it is going to be devastating. And whilst that impacts our farmers, let's not forget that's going to impact on everyone across this state, across this country. Because when we go to the supermarkets, that is going to cause prices to rise in many parts of this country. We know that the New South Wales government continues to support those communities that have been impacted by floods. Rest assured, the Premier and myself and the Minister continue to travel this state to those areas that have been impacted by floodwaters. We'll continue to do that, and we'll continue to provide the right kind of support that is needed for these communities as they do recover and we see these waters receding.
Any questions?
Why was it important for you to come out today, Premier?
Well, I was in Moama yesterday, and it's been a devastating time for our entire state. I've seen the worst of crises over the last 4 years. Our state has gone through droughts, bushfires, floods, a pandemic, floods again, and it's been tough. And I want to provide the support to our local communities so they know that the government is there. And it's not, I represent the people of New South Wales. It's the people of New South Wales whose hearts go out to those communities that have been affected. So over the course of this week, we'll be visiting many communities across our state, hearing the concerns, seeing where the challenges are, ensuring that the operation centres are running well. And I've certainly seen that. In fact, what was pleasing this morning in Denny was to see the improvement, to see that the clean-up is already to go as the floodwaters start to recede. That's better than I've seen in the past, I can tell you that much. So I think there's something positive out of this that we can take back. We've learnt the lessons when it comes to emergency response. We've gone through so many. But also, the other important point to note is there's a lot of focus when we have the floods, and that focus dissipates as we move forward. Now, my commitment as Premier has been, whether that's been in the Northern Rivers or in any community across our state, that will be there every step of the way through the short, medium to long term. Because some of the challenges and the financial issues that businesses face, that families face, aren't apparent at the moment. We're focused right now on the response. We still have rising rivers here. It's going to be a difficult time over the next few days, but we also expect a very challenging summer. That's what the weather forecast holds. We have dams full, rivers flowing, and more water over the ground than we've ever seen in a long, long time. So it's not going to take much rain over this period of time to cause more challenges for communities right across New South Wales. And my commitment as Premier, being here with the Deputy Premier and the Minister, is that we'll be here for the long haul to help our communities get through.
As you mentioned, you represent the people of New South Wales. Have you had any dealings with our Premier, Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews, and what he's doing for people over the border in Echuca?
Yeah, I have. In fact, they were going through a more challenging time before us, and we have a good relationship. I reached out to him once again to say early on whatever support he needed from the people of New South Wales we would provide, just like he has said the same thing to me in the past as well. And that strong relationship between the premiers, I know it may not always seem that way when there are difference of opinions on things, but one thing that brings everybody together are crises like this. And I'm just incredibly pleased. Like when I was in Moree, seeing SES volunteers land from Western Australia to come and help our people in Moree. I mean, how good is that? Well, we should really appreciate the great nature of our people who are there through really difficult times to help our communities get through. And I've seen that at a volunteer level, and I've seen it at a government level. I've reached out to the Prime Minister as well. We're obviously in discussions in relation to further financial assistance for our communities as we move through this, and those discussions have been incredibly constructive, and this is above politics.
Has Premier Andrews told you whether he'll be coming out to see Echuca?
What was that?
Has Premier Andrews mentioned whether he'll be coming out to Echuca to see the...
No, well, we were trying to liaise today, but my understanding is we're seeing each other tomorrow, but we're working through those issues.
Premier, you mentioned the long haul, right, and that you're going to be here to support residents long term. What sort of assistance can residents and businesses expect with the clean-up likely to go for weeks, if not months?
Well, we're Public Works on the ground to ensure the clean-up occurs as quickly as possible. Now, my experience in the Northern Rivers, that went really well, the clean-up. But then you get the gap in terms of making sure that the betterment of road infrastructure particularly is supported. I drove from Albury today, Denny, and then here. I mean, there are more potholes over the roads than we've ever seen. There's going to be a significant operation required, not just in the south, but right across the state for the betterment of our road and transport infrastructure. So there's no point building things back the way they were. We should be building back better. So I'll be working very closely with local councils and with the Commonwealth Government in relation to that funding. A lot of that funding comes out of Category C and Category D disaster funding. We've already put an application in for Category C. I'll be having further discussions with the Prime Minister on Friday in relation to Category D. They're that's the long-term support for local communities, but also for our, the Deputy Premier spoke about our agricultural and primary producers. They have gone through a bloody tough time for 4 years. We've had droughts and now facing what would be a bumper harvest. For many will be lost because of this flooding. That can be devastating for many of our agricultural producers across the state. We have those grants in place and we will extend those grants based on where that need is.
What kind of support is being offered to HSC students at the moment in activities like that?
Well, I spoke of the Education Minister, and the Department of Education is working very closely with that. We provide support in terms of special consideration for those students who have gone through a difficult time. We have done that in disasters in the past, and in fact, I was in Forbes. It was Forbes, wasn't it? Forbes last week. I was in Forbes last week where this same issue arose, and we were already providing support for those students in those areas, and those schools will be applying through the Department of Education and NESA to make sure that their circumstances, where they've gone through a very difficult time, are considered as part of getting support for the HSC funds.
Mr. Cook, can I just ask you, are you able to provide an operational update today on how many rescues have been performed, how many emergency warnings there are in place? Are you in place to do that?
Some of those details, yes, it's obviously moving. So conditions are easing somewhat across the state at the moment. We are still expecting to see showers move through the state, and we've very much got our eye on another weather system moving from west across the east over the weekend and into next week. The SES continue to respond each and every day, and we have over 700 SES personnel out in the field right across the state at present. We have almost 100 emergency warnings still in place, so we are very much watching river systems right across the state, particularly inland at present. Of course, our emergency services organisations continue to work very well. We've still got ADF in the field, and as we've seen here today, we've got the likes of Surf Lifesaving pre-positioned all around New South Wales, along with Fire Rescue, the Volunteer Rescue Association, Marine Rescue, and the RFS, of course, with the base camp at Deniliquin. We've been there again today. That's housing up to 150 emergency services personnel. So the emergency response phase is still very much alive and ongoing, but as the Premier has indicated, we've got more than one eye now towards that recovery process. And as soon as floodwaters do recede, then we will be able to get in, do those rapid damage assessments and look to get communities back on their feet as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Minister. Premier, just on some other issues if everyone else is okay. Quick question. David Elliott is saying publicly and unequivocally that you've run Charlie's among those backing Norm McCoy for the seat of Castle Hill. What's your response to that?
Well, they're internal Liberal Party matters. As I've said, that's not a focus of mine or my government's. We're focused on helping the people of New South Wales, and that's what we do every single day.
And just on the New South Wales Crime Commission releasing the fairly scathing report today into significant criminal activity.
Yep.
What's your reaction to that?
Well, I've read the report and been briefed on it, and I'm very concerned. I think it's a sobering report, and we will address those issues. There is no place for money laundering in our state, and I'll work very closely with the industry to resolve it. Some of those recommendations, there is a number of them there, but this cannot continue. And we need to do everything we can as a state to fix it, and that's exactly what I will do. I've committed to doing that recently, prior to receiving that report. The report backs in everything I believe that from the initial discussions I'd had with the head of the Crime Commission, and we will address that. We'll work with industry to fix it, and there is no place for money laundering of this scale in our state.
Michael Barnes made 8 recommendations, among them a mandatory cashless system. Is that something the government will implement?
Yeah. And I will work very closely with industry in implementing those recommendations. We'll work through it as a government and do so in a way that works. But ultimately, we cannot have we can have a situation where poker machines are just causing misery for many people. We're now seeing criminal activity occur as well. It needs to be done working closely with industry to get the right outcome for everyone. And I'm committed to doing that. I've read the report, we'll reflect on it, we'll work with my government ministers in making sure we have a very strong response, because there is no place and there is zero tolerance for that criminal behaviour in our state of New South Wales.
Clubs New South Wales put a pretty positive spin on the report, saying it vindicates them and that clubs don't aid and abet money laundering. Do they have rocks in their heads over this?
Well, my key focus on this is working with clubs, with the hotel industry my focus is to work with Clubs New South Wales and the industry to resolve these matters. I want to work together to achieve the outcome. And what does come through the report is there is substantial money laundering occurring through poker machines in our state. That needs to stop. New South Wales has more poker machines than anywhere in the world outside of Nevada. Well, these issues, these challenges need to be addressed, and they will. I'm committed to fixing it. That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Premier, just sort of coming back to the region here, will there be any plans for investment from the state government on how to prepare Moama, Deniliquin, and the region as a whole, better prepare for potential flooding in the future?
For sure. And one of the things that came through the Mick Fuller-Mario-Kane flood inquiry was building more resilient communities to natural disasters. It will flood again. We will have fires again. And what we need to do is not make the mistakes of the past, but learn from it and do things better. And that's what I've already seen happen at an operational level here in our state. But one thing's the operation, one thing's emergency response. The other thing is making sure we build more resilient communities so when these events occur, whether it's fires or floods or drought, that our people are in a much better position to deal with those events. And I'm committed to doing that as Premier, and we'll fix it.
Sorry, Premier. I just have a couple of questions, if that's all right. Reports on the ground in Moama are people that are feeling like the Victorian government is stepping up to the plate in terms of providing support, but the New South Wales government is playing catch up, with some people saying that claims are taking a very long time to get processed and they're having trouble even accessing those applications. Why do you think people feel like that?
Which grants are they?
Just any financial assistance that's available on the website.
Well, my experience is the Service New South Wales website processes applications as quickly as possible and has done so in a very positive way. Now, there are always issues when you've got major flood events and natural disasters across the state. I don't want anyone to feel like they've been left behind. We've provided over $3 billion in assistance to get our communities through these devastating events. That funding is available for households. For those who have lost income during this period of time, they can apply through Service New South Wales, and I encourage people who have been affected to make those applications. And I am sure that, as we've seen in the past, that Service New South Wales is one of the best operators when it comes to getting money out the door as quickly as possible.
We've seen the financial toll natural disasters have had on the federal budget. What's the toll looking like in New South Wales?
Well, I can say as my former capacity as Treasurer, when it came to the drought, we put $4.5 billion to support our farmers through the drought. We put over $4 billion to support those communities affected by bushfires, and now with the flooding, over $3 billion in support. But that's the point of the budget. It's not my money, it's our people's money, and our role is to get every single person through. That's the role of a good government. And our strong financial management in our state of New South Wales over the last 11 years has enabled us to help our communities when they've needed it. And that's the role of the New South Wales budget. Sure that we've gone through a difficult time during a pandemic, tens of billions of dollars of support for small businesses to help get them through. Our health system, we've invested significantly in. But that's why we're here. That's why we're here. It's not about numbers in its spreadsheet, it's about people's lives. It's about getting people back on track, and that's what we're doing.
What's your response to the federal budget?
There's some good things. I'll start with the good. The good, I think the support on childcare is important. The parental leave support, I think, will help families across our state. In addition to that, I think the housing accord is really important too. We can't have an Australia that can't house its children. We know that housing is becoming a challenge for more and more families across New South Wales. That's why in our budget we invested over $3 billion in support for housing affordability, including our stamp duty reform, which I know is being opposed by Labor, but it's reform that will actually help young people get their keys to their very first home faster. That's what good policy is all about, so I welcome those initiatives. Now, in relation to infrastructure, New South Wales continues to get fleeced. The people of New South Wales, our families have been let down once again by the Commonwealth Government when it comes to infrastructure funding. New South Wales is penalised because of its success. The New South Wales government, I know some of the journalists here are from Victoria today, well, New South Wales is 30% of the Australian population and we receive 17%, only 17% of infrastructure investment nationwide. Well, that's not acceptable. And the reason we get penalised in our state is because of our success. We have $112 billion of infrastructure funding across New South Wales over the next 4 years. That's record schools, hospitals, roads and public transport. Victoria call their infrastructure investment the big build. Well, we're building twice as much. But that doesn't mean the people of New South Wales should get penalised for it. We should stop. The federal government needs to stop penalising New South Wales for our success as a state. States that are successful and build like New South Wales should be rewarded, and poor states who don't make the tough decisions should stop being subsidised by the federal government. And I'm not saying this politically. I have said this when there's been a Liberal government in Canberra, and I'll say it again today, because we stand on our own 2 feet in New South Wales, but we are constantly penalised for our success. That has to end. New South Wales should be rewarded for building record infrastructure, not penalised. Right on, Julie Monty.
Yeah. We'll have a regional perspective.
Yeah. There's no doubt the budget that was handed down by the federal Labor government last night actually shortchanged the people of New South Wales. We're actually seeing around $1.7 billion taken out of our state. This is jobs that are being lost. This is going to impact on businesses, and really we have played a disadvantage here compared to other states across this country. We have been the economic driver here for this economy for a long period of time, and now we're going back to the bad old days where federal Labor did not invest in regional New South Wales. Now we've got programs like the Building Better Regions program. That's where councils are putting in projects that are going to benefit the community. That whole program has gone. That is investments that are going to go towards medical facilities, upgrades to main streets, it's going into roads, it's going into childcare centres. That is all gone under the federal Labor government. We've also got road projects like the Great Western Highway. They're being now deferred for the next 2 years. So whilst they're deferred and they're being delayed, this has a real impact. These are projects that are being built because of safety. We see congestion on these roads, important for productivity, important for freight movements, but now they're being put backwards. We've also got water security projects across this state. And when I'm talking about water security projects, I'm talking about building dams. And now they've been put into the never. So you've got a federal Labor government that doesn't understand that there are people that live in regional New South Wales. What they're focused on is NSW, Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong, and they've ripped the guts out of regional New South Wales. We've also got an issue around energy security. They're talking about energy costs going up by 50% over the next 12 months. I'll tell you what, this is going to hit every household. This is going to hit every business. This is going to put real pressure on businesses to keep their doors open. And I'm really concerned that there will be businesses that will close their doors and we'll see people unemployed because there is no support when it comes to energy in the budget that we've just seen handed down. What we want to see is a fair go given to the people of New South Wales, not going back to those bad old days where federal Labor turned its back on regional New South Wales. We've worked too hard over the past 10 years with the investments that we've seen into our communities, and just by the stroke of a pen overnight, it's now been taken away. We're not going to stand back for it, and I'll tell you right now, I'll be fighting for regional New South Wales, and the Albanese government, whilst he flies everywhere and doesn't drive on our roads and see the condition of them, I'll be making sure that he hears this news loud and clear from the people of this state.
Can I just add on cost of living to this point? Thanks, Todd. Is in relation to the fact that what we've seen last night is that Labor cannot be trusted with supporting household budgets with the cost of living. In New South Wales, our government has invested $7.2 billion in cost of living initiatives to help families right across New South Wales. Last night, the federal budget, only $7.5 billion right across the country. So Liberals and Nationals in New South Wales supporting household budgets right across our state, bringing down the cost of living for families. What we're seeing by Labor once again is being out of touch with the real concerns facing families in New South Wales. The people of our state just want our fair share. That's all we ask for at every federal budget. But once again, we just keep getting penalised because of our state's infrastructure success. That approach needs to change. And I'm getting sick of lazy Labor states around the country being rewarded for poor financial management, whereas the Liberals and Nationals in New South Wales, standing on our own 2 feet, get penalised at every single budget time.